Chapter 30. We started back and found our packs and went back up that trail that had dropped straight down to sea level. A sheer crawling and hand-grasping climbing among rocks and little trees that exhausted us. But finally, we came out on a beautiful meadow and climbed it, and again saw all San Francisco in the distance. Jack London used to walk this trail, said JP. We proceeded along the south slope of a beautiful mountain that afforded us a view of the Golden Gate, and even of Oakland miles away for hours on end as we trudged. There were beautiful natural parks of serene oaks, all golden and green in the late afternoon, and many wildflowers. Once we saw a fawn standing at a nub of grass, staring at us with wonder. We came down off this meadow down deep into the redwood forest, then up again so steeply that we were cursing and sweating in the dust. Trails are like that. You're floating along in a Shakespearean art in paradise and expect to see nymphs and flute boys. Then suddenly, you're struggling in a hot boiling sun of hell in dust and nettles and poison oak. Just like life. Bad karma automatically produces good karma, said JP. Don't cuss so much, and come on. We'll soon be sitting pretty on a flat hill. The last 2 miles of the hill were terrible, and I said, JP, there's one thing I would like right now more than anything in the world. More than anything I've ever wanted all my life. Cold dusk winds were blowing. We hurried bent with our backs on the endless trail. What? A nice big Hershey bar, or even a little one. For some reason or other, a Hershey bar would save my soul right now. There's your Buddhism, a Hershey bar. How about moonlight in an orange grove and a vanilla ice cream cone? Too cold. What I need, want, pray for, yearn for, dying for right now is a Hershey bar with nuts. We were very tired and trudging along home talking like children, like two children. I kept repeating and repeating about my good old Hershey bar. I really meant it. I needed the energy anyway. I was a little woozy and needed sugar, but to think of chocolate and peanuts all melting in my mouth in that cold wind, it was too much. Soon, we were climbing over the corral fence that led to the horse meadow over our shack, and then climbing over the barbed wire fence right in our yard, and trudging down the final 20 feet of high grass past my rosebush bed to the door of the good old little shack. It was our last night home together. We sat sadly in the dark shack, taking off our boots and sighing. I couldn't do anything but sit on my feet. Sitting on my feet took the pain out of them. No more hikes for me forever, I said. JP said, well, we still have to get supper, and I see where we used up everything this weekend. I'll have to go down the road to the supermarket and get some food. Oh man, aren't you tired? Just go to bed, we'll eat tomorrow. But he sadly put on his boots again and went out. Everybody was gone. The party had ended when it was found that JP and I had disappeared. I lit the fire and lay down and even slept a while, and suddenly it was dark and JP came in and lit the kerosene lamp and dumped the groceries on the table, and among them were 3 bars of Hershey chocolate just for me. It was the greatest Hershey bar I ever ate. He'd also brought my favorite wine, Red Port, just for me. I'm leaving, Ray, and I figured you and me might celebrate a little. His voice trailed off sadly and tiredly. There's no need to panic, just a little bug. Alright, where was I? I'm leaving, Ray, and I figured you and me might celebrate a little. His voice trailed off sadly and tiredly. When JP was tired, and he often wore himself out completely, hiking or working, his voice sounded far off and small. But pretty soon he roused his resources together and began cooking his supper and singing at the stove like a millionaire, stomping around in his boots on the resounding wood floor, arranging bouquets of flowers in the clay pots, boiling water for tea, plucking on his guitar, trying to cheer me up as I lay there staring sadly at the burlap ceiling. It was our last night. We both felt it. I wonder which one of us will die first, I mused out loud. Whoever it is, come on back, ghost, and give him the key. Ha! He brought me my supper, and we sat cross-legged and chomped away as on so many nights before. Just the wind furying in the ocean of trees and our teeth going chomp chomp over good, simple, mournful biku food. Just think, Ray, what was it like here on this hill where our shack stands 30,000 years ago, in the time of the Neanderthal man? And do you realize that they say in the sutras there was a Buddha of that time, Dipankara, the one who never said anything? Can't you just see all those enlightened monkey men sitting around a roaring wood fire, around their Buddha saying nothing and knowing everything? The stars were the same then as they are tonight. Later that night, Sean came up and sat cross-legged and talked briefly and sadly with J.P. It was all over. Then Christine came up with both children in her arms. She was a good, strong girl and could climb hills with great burdens. That night, I went to sleep in my bag by the rosebush and rued the sudden cold darkness that had fallen over the shack. It reminded me of the early chapters in the life of Buddha, when he decides to leave the palace, leaving his mourning wife and child and his poor father, and riding away on a white horse to go cut off his golden hair in the woods and send the horse back with the weeping servant, and embarks on a mournful journey through the forest to find the truth forever. Like as the birds that gather in the trees of the afternoon, wrote Ashwagosha almost 2,000 years ago, then at nightfall vanish all away. So are the separations of the world. The next day, I figured to give JP some kind of strange little going away gift, and didn't have much money or any ideas particularly, so I took a little piece of paper about as big as a thumbnail and carefully printed on it, "May you use the diamond cutter of mercy." And when I said goodbye to him at the pier, I handed it to him. As he read it, put it right in his pocket and said nothing. The last thing he was seen doing in San Francisco, Psych had finally melted and written him a note saying, "Meet me on your ship in your cabin. I'll give you what you want," or words to that effect. So that was why one of us went on board to see him off in his cabin. Psych was waiting there for a final passionate love scene. Only Sean was allowed to go aboard and hover around for whatever was going to happen. So after we all waved goodbye and went away, JP and Psych presumably made love in the cabin, and then she began to cry and insist she wanted to go to Japan too, and the captain ordered everybody off, but she wouldn't get off. And the last thing was, the boat was pulling away from the pier, and JP came out on deck with Psych in his arms and threw her clean off the boat. He was strong enough to throw a girl 10 feet right on the pier, where Sean helped catch her. And though it wasn't exactly in keeping with the diamond cutter of mercy, it was good enough. He wanted to get to that other shore and get onto his business. His business was with the Dharma. And the freighters sailed away out the Golden Gate and out to the deep swells of the Great Pacific, westward across. Psych cried. Sean cried. Everybody felt sad. Warren Coughlin said, "Too bad. He'll probably disappear into Central Asia, marching about on a quiet but steady round from Kashgar to Lanchao via Lhasa with a string of yaks selling popcorn, safety pins, and assorted colors of sewing thread, and occasionally climb a Himalaya, and end up enlightening the Dalai Lama and all the gang for miles around, and never be heard of again." "No, he won't," I said. "He loves us too much." Alva said, "It all ends in tears anyway." Just a few more chapters.